Hello, welcome to July 20th, 2023. My name is Kurt, and this is my daily Good Life meditation video. This is an exercise that I do every morning, a little bit after waking up. It's now 4:46 a.m. I do this exercise to remember my life objectives and principles, those which are outlined in my book, Going Alone. I also use this time to reflect on the last 24 hours, including last night, to see how I did with any challenges or opportunities that I met along the way in the last 24 hours. I also use this time to think about the coming day, to forecast the challenges and opportunities I might meet, and to ready myself for the things that are unexpected. But before I begin, let's read another poem by John Keats. First two poems actually. First we'll read yesterday's poem through, the one we studied yesterday, and then study and read a new poem today. Yesterday's poem was called Two and then a hyphen, you can see right there. Two and then a hyphen, and then there's an asterisk. The asterisk indicates that this is a later note that it says a lady whom he saw for some moments at Vauxhall. So this is a poem that Keats wrote to a woman that he spied that clearly caught his eye. Time's sea hath been 5 years at its slow ebb. Long hours have to and fro let creep the sand, since I was tangled in thy beauty's web, and snared by the ungloving of thy hand. And yet I never look on midnight sky, but I behold thine eyes' well-memoried light. I cannot look upon the rose's dye, but to thy cheek my soul doth take its flight. I cannot look on any budding flower, but my fond ear in fancy at thy lips, and hearkening for a love sound doth devour its sweets in the wrong sense. Thou dost eclipse every delight with sweet remembering, and grief unto my darling joys dost bring. I see that now, having given it 24 hours to sit. I see that even more so. I just think that touched me are the way that he was snared by the ungloving of thy hand. Imagine the woman removing the glove and just the sight of her bare hand having this impact on him. As men, we are vulnerable to such things. And then, interesting here how he says, and hearkening for a love sound doth devour its sweets in the wrong sense. Titillating. Imagine if man wrote that to a woman. I mean, that's stunning poem. Okay, today's poem is called To the Nile, and it's an ode to the Nile River. There were four things here that I had to look up to understand this poem. The first is the phrase, or the title, the name, Moon Mountains. I didn't know Moon Mountains, what is that? So I looked it up, and it turns out that's a bit of a rabbit hole. The Moon Mountains are the legendary source of the Nile River, which it turns out was no easy thing to find. It actually is a couple of different places because the Nile splits into the Blue Nile and the White Nile. And it's very deep. The Nile's a long river, and it's deep into the mountains. Moon Mountains were identified in the ancient times by a man named Diogenes, not the philosopher Diogenes, a different Diogenes, who had spent 24 days traveling into the mountains and found what he regarded as the moon, as the source of the Nile. He said the locals called it the Moon Mountains because of the snow-capped mountains. Anyway, that stood for centuries until later, more modern expeditions discovered two sources for the Nile, which are mountains indeed, of course, but they were very difficult to find. So in the poem, he refers to the Moon Mountains African, so referring to the source. The second item I had to look up was a word, swart, which is an archaic, or not archaic necessarily, but an older term, meaning dark or black. And he's referring to Black Africa, what we call where the darker people live. And he says nurse of swart nations, so nurse of the black nations, of the dark nations, the African nations. Another word here was Dikan. This was a rabbit hole. Dikan, first I looked it up, the first meaning was, indicates every 10 degrees of of arc in the zodiac. That can't be it, because he's talking about it. The line is, rest for a space twixt Cairo and Deccan. Well, so Cairo, of course, is a city in Egypt, but Cairo and the 10 degrees of the zodiac, that didn't make any sense. So it turns out I looked a little further, and it turns out it's a city in Kosovo. And I'm thinking, okay, travelers. So remember, this is a poem about the Nile. Travelers between Cairo and Deccan up in Kosovo? That's going away from the Nile. That can't be it. And so I tried to then find out if Deccan was a trade route at least. And then that led me to what is the Deccan Sultanate, which was a Central African geopolitical organization in the ancient world. That made sense. So the Nile would have been part of the trade route between Cairo and the Deccan Sultanate. And Keats had simply spelt it wrong, or at least maybe it was right for his time, D-E-C-A-N, and the more modern spelling is D-E-C-C-A-N. And I understood that. And then the last word was bedew, which I think you can figure out, to cause dew to form, dewdrops to form. Let's read. To the Nile. Son of the old Moon Mountains African, chief of the pyramid and crocodile, we call thee fruitful, and what very while a desert fills our scene's inward span. Nurse of swart nations since the world began, art thou so fruitful, or dost thou beguile such men to honor thee, who, worn with toil, rest for a space twixt Cairo and Deccan? Oh, may dark fancies err, they surely do. 'Tis ignorance that makes a barren waste of all beyond itself. Thou dost bedew green rushes like our rivers, and dost taste the pleasant sunrise. Green isles hast thou too, and to the sea as happily dost haste. I like that one. I like all of Keats' stuff. It's a little more, it's not quite my style of poetry. There's a sense to it that I can't quite put to terms. It feels, the word that keeps coming to mind is Victorian, which this is pre-Victorian. It has that feel to it, that, fairies and Greek and Roman gods, right, and all that kind of stuff, which is, I can give or take that for the most part, but it's growing on me. None of that in that poem, but his stuff is rife with that. On to the good life. Yesterday and today. Yesterday and last night. Slept good last night. Yesterday was a powerful day of work. I completed a very important set of documents, got those off to review. The meetings went well. I was strong yesterday. Strong and good. I'm really, really feeling my coming to sense now that my retirement is coming, and it's just filling me up with a sense of completion. I have to watch out, because it's possible that I could become too full of that and neglect my duties in some way. And then I don't want to do that. And it's also possible that I could wind up going into my retirement and not being ready for the emptiness that could await me. So I have to, don't overly prepare, but I have to be ready. I have to be practical and reasonable and in control. It's not the right word. Aware, maybe. Let's do the good life. 7 objectives. To be always ready to die. To make good and effective use of time. To develop and maintain good and sound life principles. To cultivate good emotional reactions. To perform good actions. To recognize my true limits and my true opportunities. And to do just one thing at a time. And to do that thing slowly and deliberately, carefully. Now for my 34 principles. Oh, by the way, these objectives and principles are all in my book, Going Alone, in the chapter titled The Good Life. The principles are war, reason, homunculus, Anchorhold, home of good and evil, purpose, atomic principle. Principle of nature, the pirate ride. Maturity, the social principle. The principle of family. public speaking, temperance. Life will not go well. The horror show, that which must be born, Borne, the home of good and evil. No. The Feast of Offal, that's it. Distraction, agency in the great indifference, the best seat in the house, the Restless Man, the Path of Wildness, the great life adventure, the risk of avoiding risk, sin and damnation, complete oblivion. The season of philosophy, script writing, the bullseye aim, the uphill climb, arena and utility, nothing is enough, and the principle of fun. God, it feels like I got them all. Got a little out of order there once. All right. It felt like I missed something about principle number 5 or 6 there, but I think I got them. Okay, now, what about today? It's a busy day. Got a lot to do. Going to be talking AI with some people at work. Interesting stuff. Talking, teaching, telling people how they can replace me, so to speak, for at least for a portion of my job. What else? It's just going to be able to plow forward. And I took tomorrow off, and I took Monday off. Tomorrow to attend a retirement class at work, and then on Monday to pick up my daughter at the airport from Japan. Don't think she's going to have a chance to do that. Well, never mind. I'm just thinking of a tangential thought. Anyway, we'll wrap it back in. Am I ready to die? This means 3 things. Are my affairs in order? Are my relationships sound? And is my life's work complete? So, as for the affairs, they are in order. Paperwork, accounts, passwords, everything. Will. Are my relationships sound? Yes. Is my life's work complete? My daughter's grown and my book is writ. But my book is writ. I'm done. I can die any moment now, and it's a good time to die. Don't want to. I want to hang around and do more stuff, but it's okay if I don't. And with that, I'm done. I wish you all the best. Be safe, but not too safe. And now my life is done, if not finished. See you later. There you go. 3's the charm.